Good morning, Garland Nixon here. It's Monday morning. That means we're hanging out with Laith Marouf. Let's talk. You know, it's a Monday morning and man, I'm up late. I'm laying in the bed and I'm like, this feels so good. And then the sun peeked through and I'm like, holy moly, I got to get up. We got Laith Marouf coming on in a few minutes and I got to be ready. And I was actually excited. I didn't want to lay in bed later. I was like, I got to get up. There's a lot going on. And Laith Marouf, he runs a group, an organization. It's Free Palestine TV, freepalestine.video. I knew he was on top of everything. And, you know, we've been talking about the situation in West Asia recently. And I knew that I would learn a lot from Laith. Laith, welcome back.
Great to be with you, Garland. And just to make an even more stupider dad joke, they would say Laith is never late to get laid, but
That's a good one. All right, let's get rolling. Let's start here. I don't know where to start. I just don't know where to start, but let's start here. Mike Huckabee kind of gave up the reality, and that is, America, this whole idea of being a democracy, of being a constitutional republic, all of this crap. No, this is a Zionist empire. That's all it is. Nothing else. I don't remember the exact words, but the exchange was Tucker Carlson was like, is this a democracy or something? Or does the government respond to what the people want? And Huckabee was like, oh, yeah, sure, certainly. And he said, well, 80% of Americans are opposed to, are not in favor of this, an attack on Iran. And Huckabee goes, well, the government doesn't just respond to polls. And the polls, in fact, are the people. So, and I mean, Huckabee was just pretty much saying, look, I'm here because I work for the Zionism and the Zionists, and I don't work for you. I don't even like you. I don't work for the American people. Don't really like them. Not really concerned with them. I'm here. It's all about Israel. You get Ted Cruz. Hey, why'd you run for office, Ted? So I could represent Israel in Texas. Mike Huckabee, what about the American people? Screw them. It's about the Zionists. You know what? I'm glad that they're coming out from under their rocks telling the truth that this is a Zionist empire. Americans, don't waste your time thinking that there's anybody in power that represents you, because that just ain't the truth. Mike Huckabee, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely living in the age of revelations. It's almost very, spiritual this time that we're living in. There's nothing that we can imagine that in terms of conspiracy theories that could even match what is coming out over the last few months. And clearly, right now, the conspiracy theories themselves seem to be weak sauce, pretty at any moment right now. We have already proof that the Zionists are eating babies and drinking their blood and making jerky from them. I'm almost holding my breath for somebody to say that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is actually a true document. This is the only thing that's left that hasn't been proven right now. This is how bad it is. And watching how Huckabee was talking about the Zionists having the right to occupy all Arabic peoples, basically, and enslave us and loot our land in the name of, the God that they are worshiping, who is clearly not the same God of Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. This God that they're worshiping is a vicious, vengeful, punishing God that has, in their mind, has created everybody who's not Jewish as just a toy for the Jews. And that's such a satanic thing to say. God created us all equal. We are all created in His image. We're all the sons of Adam and Eve. There's one God and one humanity. That's the message of all of the great prophets of Western Asia, and North Africa. This is the tradition of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. And so to hear this lunatic Huckabee speak in such manner, and to have I think the majority of the American government officials being of that same persuasion, this is a threat to all of humanity. It's not only a threat to us here, Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims, it's a threat to American citizens, because if Huckabee can say Jews have the right to mass murder people in Western Asia and to loot their land, what's to stop him from saying that they also have the same right to American citizens, wealth and livelihood and lives? So this is the only thing that hasn't been pronounced yet openly, that the American officials have yet to say fully that they are willing to allow Israelis to kill Americans on American soil. We've seen American officials already allow Israelis and Zionists to kill Americans on foreign soil, as have happened to multitude of American Palestinians and Americans that are visiting Palestine, like Rachel Corey and, of course, Shireen Abu Akleh, the journalist. So I think the American public, if they do not want to end up having the same fate as the Palestinian people, it is time for them to revolt. It is time for them to force the American government and elite to actually represent their will. And I'm kind of worried, because with all these revelations over the last few weeks, months of the Epstein files, the fact that there hasn't been any serious reaction from the public that could threaten the elite, it actually makes me feel that they are going to get away with it. The Zionist, Satanist cannibalists, they're going to get away with it.
Well, I tell you, being here, man, it's bubbling. It's bubbling below the surface. It's bubbling everywhere. And I think that if they attack Iran, it would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because Americans would suddenly feel the economic pain that they've been distancing themselves from instantly. And I think a lot of this stuff is bubbling below the surface. America is a cauldron right now, and it's waiting to boil. It's what's the dry tinder. All it takes is a spark right now. The other thing is this: the Huckabee interview. Well, the Israelis, the Zionists, have a right to take everything and anything they want. Saudi Arabia, give it up. Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, you guys. Now, if you're a leader of that country, that means you got to die, because you know how the Zionists do. That means that they got to come in, they got to kill your royal family, kill everybody, kill half the citizens. Wait a minute, kill all of the citizens. You see what they're doing in Palestine? What they're saying is that occupied Palestine has to be Saudi Arabia. All you useless eaters that are Muslims, you just got to die so that you can be replaced. You know what's interesting? We've heard this whole thing about the great replacement theory. Oh, we're afraid that they're going to bring people in and they're going to replace us with fill in the blank. I think the Muslims got a strong argument that the Zionists are working for the great replacement theory along with the U.S. and the U.S. empire. And it's a little bit different there. But your thoughts on Huckabee's comments and whether or not I noticed this: some of the royal families that are living happy and they got money and they're working at the behest of the empire and they think they got it good, and all of a sudden the Zionists say, oh, by the way, we're going to kill you and take your land too. And they're like, wait a minute, that's not the way it's supposed to work. Very interesting, I think.
Yeah, those letters of or pronouncements of condemnation by the countries that were named as possible colonies that will be controlled by the Zionists, I think they're more for public consumption. You know, the Saud family, Sisi, the Hashemite family in Jordan, they're all slaves. Their countries are already controlled and occupied. And what we see on the map as a border, it doesn't exist. The Zionists can even enter Mecca and desecrate it as they wish. We've seen videos of Israeli citizens inside Mecca, inside the Holy Mosque. And now, of course, we've seen the pictures of the Kaaba's cover and the inside of the Kaaba, part of the cover that's inside the Kaaba being a carpet under the feet of Epstein, delivered by the Saudi princess. I think, looking at the Epstein files, there's an exchange with that Saudi princess, between Epstein and that Saudi princess, before she gives him the cover of the Kaaba. And she tells him that the Saud family, they are Jewish and that they are hiding it. I mean, this is another conspiracy theory that existed for, last 80 years in the Arabic world, in the Muslim world, that the Saud family are Jewish, hiding their Jewishness, and that they are collaborators with the Zionists. And now we know it's true. So why would the Saud family be scared of the Zionists controlling their country or occupying their land? They're already giving it to them. They're already desecrating Islam and the image of Islam, as we know, as the Saud family worked for the CIA and the Mossad in building the Wahhabi cult and exporting the death squads of the Wahhabi cult to denigrate Islam, to make Muslims hated, to also allow an excuse for the West to occupy countries that were not part of the Wahhabi domains. So right now, this is, I think, the countries like Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi that were mentioned in the Huckabee Greater Israel Plan, these are already part of the Greater Israel Plan and have already been achieved in terms of control. And the Syria now fell to that control. Lebanon and Iraq are the only right now countries that are not controlled directly by the Zionists and or occupied to the borders that of Greater Israel that Huckabee pronounced. So, I think Huckabee's pronouncements, before him, what's his name? Thomas Barak, the envoy of Trump to the region, talking about, Israel having the right to do whatever it wants to. All of these things have now, anyone that was unconvinced by all the proof that we had for 100 years that this is the plan, this is what's going. Now we're hearing it from the horse's mouth. And the only people that are denying that Zionists want to colonize and kill and genocide everybody in the region are lying to themselves and or are paid propagandists.
Bad news for the royal families. They'll kill you anyway. It's called the Faustian bargain. Quite literally in this case, but it's a Faustian deal. It's like watching a vampire movie where somebody makes a deal with the vampire, and in the end, they're like, "Well, I made a deal with you. You were supposed to spare me." And the vampire's like, I'm a vampire. I kind of really don't keep my deals." And he bites him in the neck anyway. You're making a deal with the Israelis, and you think that in the end, they're going to keep their word and they're going to spare you. I think we know how, if the Israelis were to be able to see an opportunity to take over Saudi Arabia tomorrow, they'd kill the royal family and everybody else they could. It's who they are. They're unapologetic about it.
Yes. And, you look at how these royal families in the Gulf and in the Arabic world in general have been, mentioned so often in the Epstein files. I was remembering, just a few years ago, the sister of the king of Jordan, she was married off to one of the Emirati princes. And then she ran away with her daughters to France, if you remember that story. And it was a huge scuffle about it. And now we know that basically that Jordanian princess and her daughters were getting raped, okay, in these Epstein circles. And you could imagine if the king of Jordan doesn't care about his sister, and or Saudi princess saying, "I'm gonna send you my younger sister that she's hotter, she's 13 years old," to Epstein. You could see like that these, you know, quote unquote royalties in the Arabic world are raped as children by Zionists and then made to be rapists as adults. Okay, so since the part of the initiation, it seems like, of these royal families in the Arabic world within the Zionist circles is to have them raped as children, to become part of this eternal cycle of rape and raped, raped and raped, and pedophilia, being a victim of pedophilia and being a perpetrator of pedophilia. Seems to be the kind of the bookends of how these princesses and princes are made in the Arabic world. And it's a similar thing about that princess in, I think it was Norway or whatever it is, the Norwegian princess. I mean, like, God damn. And Prince Andrew, it's the only way you can be royalty is to be a victim of pedophilia and a perpetrator of pedophilia at the same time. This is, it seems like, the initiation process. So I, you know, luckily, any country that doesn't have royalty should count themselves lucky. This is the regular behavior of royalties around the world.
The other thing is Prince Andrew, whose middle name is Mountbatten, is now in a, you know, supposedly he's taking heat. You know, they're just covering for him for what? For pedophilia and for all kind of sexual degenerate activities, right? His uncle, who is his namesake, was involved in that Kinkora debacle, that Kinkora thing, where basically they had these like orphanage or schools or something for young boys. Mountbatten was his name. Anyone can look that up. And so his uncle, his namesake, was involved in raping young boys. Now, I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but what you see is this. It's a degenerate bloodline. You look at it and you're like, when people look at how the ruling elite in Russia are acting, I mean, excuse me, in Europe are acting towards Russia. You know, they hate the Russians. The Russians are terrible. The Russians are evil. And you're like, this doesn't make sense. But when you see who these people are, this didn't just happen. Epstein didn't just happen. This is who these people, this is who the ruling elite and the political class have been in Europe for generations, for centuries, just degenerate, sexual degenerates.
Oh yes, and we know now that there's a network of Epsteins. It's not just one Epstein around the world, and the you know, removal of Epstein from the picture doesn't stop the process that is happening. And of course, before there was internet and phones and photography, these elites were doing the same thing for hundreds of years. You know, those Irish children that were being raped by the royal family of, you know, they are either orphans and or remember, they did to Irish women what they did to indigenous women in the United States and Canada, where they would throw them in these churches and forcefully take away their children, and then they disappear. And so this has been ongoing, part of this colonialism and imperialism is the feelings of this elite that they are somehow above other humanity, that they are superior, that they are God, they have the God-given right to kill, rape, and pillage everybody else. Okay, and you know, we read the history of what happened to the indigenous peoples in the Americas, what happened to African people throughout the colonization process and the cross-Atlantic slave trade, what happened in the Virginia slave factories where people were, you know, bred, you know, through rape of their to create the bloodline, whatever they want to, of African workers. So this is not a new thing. What was amazing, I think, over the last 80 years is how Hollywood and Western elite were able to erase that memory from the public mind. We were supposed to have suddenly none of this behavior that existed since the Greek times by European elites and the Romans and so forth up until World War One, which was everybody knew about these things, and it wasn't something unusual to talk about the depravities of the elite. Now, but this period of between World War II and now, it was the anomaly. Pretending that there is such a thing as democracy, pretending that the elite will listen to the will of the people, pretending that the elite are not depraved drug addicts, sexual pervert, pedophiles, cannibals, murderers. Well, now we know nothing has changed, only that there was a facade that was a very well designed facade, and now it's fallen. Everybody now sees what's behind the curtain.
Yeah, real quick, I'll just show people something just so they'll know what we're talking about and how widespread it is. If you remember old Erica Kirk there, Erica Kirk ripped for featuring controversial pastor on Make Heaven Crowded tour. Very disturbing. So TPUSA, Turning Point, they're having a Make Heaven Crowded tour. I guess they're going to fill it with pedophiles. It's going to be crowded with pedophiles. But it's very disturbing. Why? Okay. Her latest project has received backlash over the feature of Pastor Greg Laurie, who is currently embroiled in child abuse and trafficking allegations. Oh, heaven's going to be crowded, all right. And it goes this, okay, Laurie is the pastor of the Harvest Christian Church. They've been named in a wave of lawsuits alleging child abuse and trafficking. The lawsuit alleges that church leaders, including Laurie, allowed whatever that's got to act without oversight and overlooked multiple warning signs of his alleged misconduct when he ran a church-supported children's home, right? It also alleged that the church didn't cease to financially support the Romanian homes despite the reports of abuse, and that he was allowed to return to the United States with some of the children to raise even more funds. Erica Kirk is having a Make Heaven Crowded tour with a guy who, well, when she was in Romania running a children's home that was alleged to be involved in trafficking and sexual abuse for children, this guy was in Romania running children's homes who were abused, who were advised to be involved, were accused of sexual abuse of children. This guy comes to the United States and brings some of the children with him. And now TPUS is bringing him along in their Make Heaven Crowded tour. First of all, how in the hell does he get back and the United States doesn't stop him at the border and say, hey, what about those kids? Well, it's like you said, Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, and obviously we saw how in the Epstein files, Ukraine and Romania are very prominent as kidnapping zones for children. And if we look deeper, we can find now that, of course, on Pornhub and OnlyFans, it's dominated by Ukrainian and Romanian women, and that is part of how these nations were destroyed and made into these zones where women and children are vulnerable, and where there's no state to protect them, and there's no jobs, all by design. And we also, of course, we don't have much discussion about this outside, but all the killing fields in Libya, in Sudan, in Palestine, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, the children that are been disappearing in the thousands. I mean, I remember that video of Israeli soldiers taking a Palestinian baby from Gaza at the beginning of the war and just walking back into the Zionist colony with it. And we don't know what happened to that child. But in my mind, I expect that all the children that are disappearing around the world are being run through this cannibalism, pedophilia, ring around that the elites are controlling. And Romanian children are very prominent in Erica Kirk's life. She seems to be a important, crucial ring in that. This is part of what she is. She's basically paying back her dues by inviting this pastor to this tour. And up until now, there's not been one U.S. citizen that has been arrested because of the Epstein files. I think the only reason in the UK they arrested Prince Andrew is because the royal family is at its worst ratings in history, and there's very possible, that the population in the UK would reject the existence of the royal family. It doesn't need to be there anyways. So this is the only reason they're trying to clean up somehow the image of the royal family, so they don't collapse.
Yeah, I certainly agree. They're trying to maybe stick him out there a little bit and save the whole royal family, maybe sacrifice him just a little, not completely sacrifice him. So I'm with you there. All right. I did want to talk about a couple of things. Donald Trump recently gave up the ghost, man. He said it. He was talking about the the terrorist leader of Syria, Jelani. And came out and said, I put him in office. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Trump's presidency is definitely the best thing that happened to humanity. I know with all the death that we're seeing, that maybe sound like an exaggeration, but he's saying things openly. I don't think he comprehends really what he's doing, but he's revealing everything. We have been telling people as Syrians for 15 years now that this quote unquote revolution is not a revolution, that it's Mossad, American, British intelligence, and Saudis and Qataris that are paying to bring these Wahhabi death squads. I think very likely that Al-Julani is not even Arabic or Muslim, that he's could be a Mossad agent, taught Arabic, taught in Saudi schools to speak in religious ways of Islam, and he is an agent, a tool. So to hear Trump say finally, yeah, we put him in power, and to hear the former ambassador of the U.S. Ford talk about how they, what he was approached and had the job to train the guy to flip from being a terrorist to be acceptable to the West. I mean, all of this is now done. And so what do we hear when Trump says he appointed Al-Julani, and when Huckabee says Israel has the right to colonize anybody it wants to? And finally, in the Arabic and Muslim world, people who have sectarianism has blocked them from seeing the truth. They're starting to see it. There's a very famous Egyptian actor, Omar Wakid, his name is, and he was on American movies, by the way. He's like one of the most famous Egyptian actors. He's a Sunni Arab, and he tweeted a couple of days ago saying that the Shia Muslims are right now the ones defending Islam, and that they are the only ones that defended Palestine and have been sacrificing for it. And he called on the Sunnis to wake up, And so his tweet has like over 7 million views, by the way. And all the Zionists and the Wahhabis started attacking him. But we saw finally with these statements that came out, actually Arabic and Sunni Muslims defending the guy, saying, well, it's coming out of the Zionist and the imperialist mouth. these statements. And the truth is, Shias have sacrificed the most for defending Palestine over the last 3 years, and have sacrificed a lot, and are the only ones defending Islam, period. The only ones that are giving an example of Islam that is not polluted by Zionism and imperialism. And so these are all indicators that the genie is out of the bottle. It's impossible right now for, just like it's impossible for the Zionists to hide the genocide, or lie to the masses again about criticism of Zionism, or conducting war against the Zionist colony. Well, I think right now, all these reveals over the last 2 weeks are waking up a huge part of the Arabic and Sunni populations, Muslim Sunni populations around the world, and there's no way to propagate them again. Just like there's no way to convince the population of the world again to support Israel. It's going to be very soon impossible for the Saud family, the Wahhabi cult, to lie to the Arabic and Muslim peoples.
Well, oh, by the way, something that you mentioned earlier, Pornhub and OnlyFans, right? Both owned by Zionists. Both of them, both of the Pornhub. This is the values of Zionism, that Pornhub, to get people addicted, people's lives get destroyed, marriages destroyed, relationships destroyed. To just sit in front of that's what they want, somebody to sit in front of a TV screen and stare at naked bodies or something all day long, to spend their money to do it, to destroy, when they have families, they have a life they could be leading. It's a terrible thing to me. I mean, look, it's free if you want to watch that. I'm not judging anybody for it, but I do think that it is something that just another addiction that they offer for people that is not in any way for the betterment of the society, and particularly for families and relationships and things like that. Children can get on computers now and they can access that stuff when their parents aren't around or don't know it, so I don't think it's an accident that they're putting the Pornhubs, it's like a come online and watch Jeffrey Epstein, the kind of thing.
Yeah, and countries like Russia and China that are banning these things are justified, and of course other nations should follow suit. This, you look at the perversion that is available there. There's a lot of emphasis, because you mentioned children. There's a lot of emphasis on cartoon pornography these days. I was looking on Netflix just trying to watch a show, and there was a cartoon show that is sexualized animals on Netflix. And I was like, what is this? Why is this here? Okay, so there's clearly an intent to normalize these things, to make people think about things, perversions that they didn't even imagine, even, right? And normalize them. And this is really serious stuff, because they want to depopulate most of the world to make it theirs. This whole thing about looking at how COVID vaccinations have dropped all the birth rates around the world. This is all part of the plan. When we look at how Bill Gates and Epstein and the other Zionists were discussing limiting the population of regions that they want to colonize. This is part of also why the killing fields are happening in Iraq and Syria and so forth. They want to expel the populations from the land that they want to loot and or kill them, okay? And they don't mind that these populations end up in Europe, because Europe's resources have already been looted. There's nothing underground anymore in Europe to extract. There's no fields to grow. There's no resources, oil or gold or whatever in Europe. But there is, under the feet of African and Asian and Latin American peoples, resources that haven't been exploited yet, and therefore you want to. So anyone that, when you started talking about the great replacement theory, of course, The Zionists are trying to do that to the Arabic and Muslim peoples in the region. And before that, even, it was the Europeans that conducted a great replacement against the indigenous peoples in the Americas and Oceania, and have invaded those lands as an invasive species, and have suffocated the original life that is there. This is like where it's crazy when people mention the great replacement theory, and you're like, well, maybe you should just go back to your environment where you originally come from.
Yeah, what's the old saying? There's a saying on the internet now where they say like every accusation is a confession. And I remember early in the Ukraine conflict when the Russians got all these children from Ukraine and they said they're orphans and they don't have anybody and we're going to bring them to Russia where they can be taken care of. And the US and the NATO and Westerns went bananas. He's kidnapping children. This is crazy. He's taking children away. And now in hindsight, I'm thinking, I think I know why the Russians took those children away. I think they kind of know what's going on. And I think that's why the NATO lunatics were so mad, because those were children they were planning on grabbing and the Russians took them away. And then the Russians said, well, you say we took children, give us the names. Give us the names of the children that we supposedly kidnapped and we'll work with you to address this issue. Never one single name came across. At any rate, let's talk about the Iran thing right now. It seems weird because the U.S. is saying, Iran, you better do what we're telling you or you're going to get it. And then they're saying, now that it's reported by Witkoff, Trump is baffled. He's befuddled. Why haven't the Iranians just capitulated and given him everything he wants? And the Iranians are like, screw you, we'll give you nothing. And that's too good for you, right? They're done. The Iranians are like, no, if you're going to fight us, if you whatever, we don't want to, but we are prepared. There is a tremendous amount. There's Chinese spy ships floating around the area. There's a lot of discussions about various weapons and technology that the Iranians have now. I think the Americans are like, we're going to get you, but we're a little worried because we don't know what the heck you might have to punch us back with. Interesting times. And I think they're right. The Iranians, first of all, let me say this. They call it a 12 days war. 12 days ain't a war. 12 days is a thrashing. 3 years is a war. 2 years is a war. 12 days, if you are soundly defeated and humiliated in 12 days, I wouldn't call that a war. I would call that a beat down, as they say on the streets. That's what Israel got, a beat down. And I think the U.S. is now doing a lot of threatening. But I think we are told that somebody, perhaps Vance and or Tulsi Gabbard, told Trump, if you do this, it's political suicide. And it is. But at any rate, your thoughts on the hesitation. The U.S. was like, we're going to get you, Iran. And they just keep hesitating. I think they're afraid of what Iran and its, what's the term, allies may be able to do. And I think they better be afraid. Anyway, wait.
Yeah, the U.S. already lost an MQ-9 last night, flying over the Hormuz Strait. So the Iranians are already preparing themselves. I think that was just a warning to show the United States that whatever development that they had on the MQ-9 or how high it's flying, that the Iranians can take it down. When I was in Iran, we filmed in the Aerospace Museum of Iran. It's going to come out, the documentary, in the next... not tomorrow, I think. But we saw the original MQ-9 that Iran shot down over Hormuz also around 10 years ago, where they were able to recapture all the pieces of the MQ-9 all the way in the bottom of the sea and put it together and reverse engineer it. At the time, this was during the first Trump presidency. Trump was threatening to bomb 6 locations in Iran, and then he backed out of that and actually thanked Iran publicly. Why? Because there was a Osprey flying close to that MQ-9, but on a much lower level, that is gathering the data from the MQ-9, and Iran could have shot down that plane with the crew on it, the 10 whatever crew that are on it, and kill them, but instead chose to target the harder target at a higher altitude and bring it down. So all of these show us that, you know, Iran has much more advanced weapons today. Everything that we saw in the museum was at least 10 years old, and that includes all the weapons that were used on during the quote-unquote 12-day war. And therefore, if those weapons are 10 years old and can bring down all these American weapons and or can penetrate all the air defenses that the Americans put in the region and hit their targets in the Zionist colony, then imagine the new weapons being used in such a war. What will that do to the American aircraft carriers, American bases, American air defenses, and what it will do to the Zionist colony itself? This is partially why the US right now retreated all its command centers from the region. They withdrew them all and now are stationed in the Soda base on the island of Crete. They are so scared that if they have their headquarters anywhere in the region during this war, that their top generals will be liquidated and the base will be destroyed. But I think they, you know, looking at the map of the reach of Iran's missiles, I think Iran can reach Soda base in Crete. The issue is that how many air defenses on the way to Greece that the Iranians have to destroy to open a path for their missiles to reach Greece. So if the war starts and Iran will be trying to target Greece, where the headquarters will be, then we should be expecting that also Cyprus will be hit, Jordan will be hit, the Zionist colony will be hit, and all the American ships that are going to be in the Mediterranean trying to shoot down missiles will also be hit, all to open a path. So clearly a war with Iran is going to be the most costly to the Americans in terms of deaths since the Vietnam War. This is not a joke. There will be thousands of American soldiers dead. Yes, the United States can kill Iranian civilians. It can target, positions in Iran, but this is not going to be a one-way war. And the United States and its vassals in the region will pay heavy price if the war is triggered.
Yeah, and you know, based on what we saw from the Ansar Allah, in many instances, they fired one missile into Israel, one, and it bypassed, and it got through every air defense on the way to Israel, got through all of Israel's air defense, and it landed in the, the area, on the airport property. So I would argue this: they can fire hypersonic missiles and U.S. air defenses, as far as Crete or wherever, if they fire these hypersonic missiles, if they fire some of these, really high-end missiles, the air defenses can't shoot them down anyway. Some of these places are just naked when it comes to the technological advancements that the Iranians have. Americans don't understand that Iran has advanced technologically past the United States in a lot of areas. We got a lot of stuff, but they have things that we can't shoot down. They have submarines. The United States has not faced an adversary of this level since World War II, number one. And as I said, there are all of these rumors, we don't know what it is, that they are having a lot of technological assistance in targeting and things like that from the Russians and the Chinese in electronic warfare, etc., the Russians and the Chinese have every incentive to help them to defeat the US. And I talked about this on a video. The potential is there for the US to get defeated here. I'm not saying it will or it won't. The pain level will be astronomical. The potential is for the US to attack Iran and get defeated. And a lot of Americans don't understand that that's a possibility. I don't know if it's a 10%, I don't know if it's a 90%, but I do not discount that as a possibility that the United States could be soundly defeated.
Oh yeah, like when you look at the map, you can see how because Yemen can hit the center of the Zionist colony, that's the same distance from Iran's borders to the island of Crete. So, and Yemen, of course, their advancements are great, but they're a little bit behind Iran. So I'm sure the Iranians can hit any targets they wish to anywhere in the region. Most probably, also they have intercontinental ballistic missiles. If feces hit the fan, maybe Iran will hit American soil. This is another thing that people haven't counted yet in their mind. Maybe it will be the first time since World War II American territory is targeted in a war. The Iranian people, if the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, the Pope of Shia Islam is targeted also, I think we may see lone wolf attacks all around the world against American and Western interests. And this is, with the pronouncements of Huckabee, it's clearly right now that we are in a crusade or a Jewsade. There's no denying it. There is an attempt to defeat Islam as a religion and subjugate it under the feet of the Epstein class. And so this is going to be a do or die for not only Iran, but for Muslims, period, I think. Islam will not be able to recover the collapse of the Islamic revolution in Iran and to be ruled completely by classes that are beholden to the Epstein class globally.
Yes. Now, I want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity to see Free Palestine TV, FPTV. That is freepalestine.video. That's Laith's outstanding site where you can see they got great video. They have the latest episodes, field reports, military operations. Make sure you go over to social media links and follow them on all their social media links. And looky here, you can donate to Free Palestine TV. Just if you click on donate, and you have options, all kind of options. You can do one time or monthly. You can do various numbers, or you can do a custom amount. So freepalestine.video. And additionally is a place to go. Make sure you go to freepalestine.video. Just copy the freepalestine.video URL and share it on all your social media platforms. And in addition, if that weren't enough, as Andre Martiano always says, guess what else? Big news. Free Palestine TV is back on YouTube. That's right. Free Palestine TV is back on YouTube. You can see all of their videos, all the things they're doing, the traveling, all kinds of stuff. And of course, there's our guy, Laith Marouf, doing all kinds of stuff with shorts and various things. So go to Free Palestine TV. You can see it right there, FPTV at TV. Get it right here. At TV Free Palestine. So we got 39,000 viewers. We're going to get this up to 100,000 in the blink of an eye. Laith Marouf, can you let everybody know real quick before you go about freepalestine.video, what it is and what they'll find there?
Yeah, so we are doing all these field reports from the region, from around the world, anything that has to do with Palestine. We just came back from Iran, so those shorts that you were pointing to were from the streets of Iran. And we filmed, as I mentioned, the documentary from the Aerospace Industries Museum. Yesterday we released a video, a report about the burning of mosques and hospitals, churches, ambulances, buses in Iran during those riots that were instigated by the CIA and the Mossad. There's two other documentaries that are also going to come out from Iran. One about the American embassy in Tehran that was turned into a museum, and the torture chambers of the Savak. The Savak is the Shah's intelligence service. And so we went into the torture chambers that have been turned into a museum, and we filmed there. By the way, the head of the Savak that ran away with the Shah in 1979 is in California, and he is currently the one that is coordinating these riots and the terrorist activities in Iran over the last few months. So American people need to know this. You should, you can subscribe on YouTube. If you do not want to subscribe to a donation directly on our website, which is, I think, the best way, because you don't have to pay any of the platforms a fee, but you can subscribe on our YouTube because we've just got our monetization. Woohoo! After 2 years, you can subscribe on Substack, where we're there. You can subscribe on Rumble, and of course, you can donate directly on our website. All the content that we produced is solely funded by our viewers. We don't have any party or government or any big funders behind Free Palestine TV. It's the amazing donations of our viewers that kept the content going, and it's a great model, for people that are watching this Garland Nixon channel to understand that we can, all of us together, finance the media that we want to represent us. And people should donate to Garland, donate to Free Palestine TV. This is the only way we can challenge the centers of power, while there is the big funders, big donors, and or the corporations and the governments that control our mediascape.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks to all of my PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon people who keep the channel going. As you know, I got a P.O. box. If anybody wants to mail anything, be it a donation or just sometimes I get cards and letters, whatever you want, P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland. You can see it there. FreePalestine.video. Go there. By the way, not just to donate, but there's a lot of good info on there. You will really learn a lot from the videos. It's a great source of information. And of course, we're trying to keep it going. Thanks a lot, you all. We're out.